Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, November 1, 2018. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Old Bridge Township Zoning Board of Adjustment has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of this meeting by prominently posting in the municipal complex an announcement giving the time, the date, the location, and the agenda of this meeting. Also by mailing such announcement to the Home News and Tribune. Finally, by filing a copy of such an announcement with the municipal clerk. Ms. Silverman, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Connor?
Here.
Mr. Dewhurst?
Here.
Ms. Killer?
Here.
Mr. Stoner?
Here.
Mr. Thompson?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Ms. Chevalier? Here. Mrs. Cognell?
Here.
Chairman Sullivan?
Here.
Mr. Sachs?
Here.
Mrs. Shapiro? Here. Ms. Sawant? Here. Mr. Gill?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mr. Garrity?
Here.
Mr. Lavallo?
Here.
Mr. Dajay?
Present.
Mr. Roscoe?
Here.
Mr. Kay, and please say your name.
Cluey Funnies.
Thank you.
Kalubi Kalam. Okay. Just as a matter of housekeeping, if you have a phone on you, and probably 99% of us do, please silence it during the meeting so you won't interrupt those testify before the board. Secondly, I'd like to let everyone know this meeting is being videotaped. As you can see, the person from Old Bridge TV 15. It is not being shown live this evening on that channel. It will be shown at a later date, and I believe it's available on YouTube within a day or so, if I'm not mistaken, should you want to reference it. But please take note, you are being videotaped. Other than that, this is not obviously our usual digs for holding the meeting, so it's a little different from me looking out and probably from you looking at us. We'll try and make it through, however, without too much problem. As far as the applications this evening, those interested, they will be a little out of order. Number 1 will be Coast. Number 2 is Fountains at OB LLC, and the final one would be DSZ LLC. Having said that, we'll move on to item number 2. That's discussions. 2718Z Stacy and Ara Zakarian. It's a R20 zone, block 25102, lot 2. It was for a D variance. That application is being withdrawn without prejudice. If you're hearing that matter, the matter is being withdrawn. It will be taken off the calendar. Second is 3614Z, Pleasant Valley Estates LLC. That's in the R20 zone. That's block 19015, lots 1, 7, 8, 12, 11.11, 13.12, and 15.12. That application is being withdrawn without prejudice as well. If you're hearing that matter, it's not going to be heard. It has been withdrawn. Next, I have one resolution in reference to Premier Media LLC and the Township of Old Bridge Zoning Board and the Township of Old Bridge. Whereas Premier Media has filed a complaint in the New Jersey Superior Court Law Division in lieu of prerogative writs concerning application naming the Zoning Board of Adjustment and the Township as defendants bearing caption Premier Media versus Zoning Board of Adjustment Township of Old Bridge and listing the docket number. And whereas there exists a need for the service of an attorney to represent the zoning board in the above entitled action, and whereas funds are or will be made available for this purpose not to exceed $5,000, and whereas the local public contracts law requires that a resolution authorizing the awarding of contracts for professional services without competitive bidding must be publicly advertised. So now therefore be it resolved, the Zoning Board of Adjustment does hereby authorize $5,000 for Lawrence B. Sachs to represent the Zoning Board of Adjustment in this matter. Board members, you heard the resolution. Someone want to move it?
Motion, Walker.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Dewhurst. Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Dewhurst?
Yes.
Ms. Killer?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan?
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, and members of the board, if you recall, that case is actually settled, so this is just to finalize the bills on that, that's all. There were some outstanding bills, and that'll be covered by the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Item 3 is continuances. There is one. 50-17Z, Flows Investment LLC. That's in the SD1 zone. That's at 330 to 334 Route 35, relocation of lot lines. That's a minor subdivision with a D variance. The applicant is asking that matter to be continued to December 6th, 2018, without further notice. If you're hearing that matter this evening, it will not be heard. Will be on the agenda for December 6th, 2018. There will not be any further notice. Item 4 is resolutions. We have escrow deficiency of 2. There is,
Yes.
I'm sorry?
One is paid.
1 is paid, yes. 12-18Z Fountains at OB LLC, that was $8,500, it has been paid. And 55-14Z Islamic Center Old Bridge for $1,500. Board members, someone want to move it?
I'll move it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second, roll call, please.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Dooher?
Yes.
Ms. Gelder?
yes,
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. Item 5 is minutes, board members, minutes of October 18, 2018 meeting. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to review them. Absent any commentary, additions, or suggested deletions, I'd ask someone to move them for memorialization.
I'll move it.
Mr. Stoner, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Dewhurst. Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Dooher?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Gelder?
yes,
Mr. Scoggin?
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. Well, quickly, we move to the applications, and as I said, number 1 application is going to be 2318Z, Coast International LLC. It's in the R5 zone. It's block 55, lot 283. It's located at 283 Bayview Drive for construction of a single-family home. Required D and C variances. Brian Plucker, Esquire, representing the applicant. Sir.
Good evening, Brian Blocker from the firm of Hutton Shimano. It's here on behalf of the applicant. As the board is aware, we appeared for public hearing back in July and pretty much completed our case. There were certain comments made by members of the public and concerns raised by the board. This application primarily seeks a D4 use variance for exceeding floor area ratio. The original application we submitted proposed a floor area ratio of 0.9. This is an undersized lot where a lot of the lots are undersized in the Lawrence Harbor section of Old Bridge. The board was and the public were concerned about the excessiveness of the exceeding the floor area ratio requirement. We took that to heart. There were also certain comments made about the site triangle for as cars approach Lincoln Avenue. There was some obstruction next to the staircase of the house. So we did tell the board that we would go back to the drawing board. We did take the comments from the public and the board very seriously, submitted a revised plan. We are in receipt of your planner's memo in response to that plan and are ready to proceed here this evening. I'd like to call my architect, Frederick Cook.
I believe he's still under oath. You were sworn in last time or no?
He was, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Cook, you testified at the last meeting?
I did indeed.
Okay, and since then, did you submit revised plans as part of our application?
We have submitted revised plans. We've also revised the presentation boards we showed last time.
Great, please explain.
So, first of all, I have copies of the presentation boards if you guys want them. for,
Yep, thanks.
Your records.
Are these new,
Start
Fred?
at one and then pass them down.
These are new?
These are the same as the ones no, they're new, same 2 boards, but revised to the updated version.
Okay, so we should mark them.
Let's get the letter, we'll find out what the letter.
All right.
Good evening.
Oh, you should have.
Do the Vanaway thing. Good evening.
You don't mind if you want.
I know I don't.
All right.
You said A4?
We all settled?
So
So,
what was the marking?
You said A4?
A4?
we're going to mark each one separately, or? You don't.
Well, what is? What is
There's
the
2
first?
sheets. The second one just is a rendering that you have going in front of you.
We'll mark it A4 indicating it's 2 sheets.
Okay.
That's fine.
Oh, just- So there's a couple things I just want to point out. The first major change we made is we shifted the whole building back a little bit to meet the 6-foot setback line that the adjacent houses have, so the building feels a little bit more consistent along the street edge. At the corner where we had the wall on the side of the stairs, we removed that wall and replaced it with a rail, so it's transparent, people can see through it, which it looks much better in the rendering you can see on the second page, which you have in front. But it does open up that whole view corner here, so that you don't have that large obstruction of view. The third thing we did was in order to maintain the size of the building, where am I here? We did it, when we shifted it back, we did change our side setback right here just a tiny bit. I think it was 2'1" before, now it's 2'3". I don't remember the old number, but it's 2'3" now, so our side setback still works. And then, let me just check my notes, I apologize. I think that's most. The other major change is we changed the basement from being, terminology from being finished to being unfinished as part of, and we removed the square footage of the basement from the FAR calculation on the recommendation of the city planner. Moved our FAR from 0.95 to 0.7, 0.72, I think. But that's it. Those were the changes we focused on and dealt with. There was one other question about the stair bulkhead. There will be no stair bulkhead for the rooftop deck access. We're handling it with this kind of cool skylight that opens up and becomes the railing for the stairs that goes up. In the drawings we submitted, there is a cut sheet of that bulkhead or that stair skylight.
Okay, and Fred, I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but before we were seeking a floor area ratio, I believe, of 0.9, and what is it down to now?
I think it's 0.72 at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, so just to confirm, I'm just looking at planner's memo. So the original proposal had a square footage of 1,971 square feet. Now it's 1,569 square feet?
Correct.
Okay. The basement, which is now unfinished, will be approximately 400 square feet. And the gross floor area on the first floor will be 882 square feet versus 900 square feet. And the second floor will be 687 versus 690.
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cook. Does the board have any other questions?
Professionals first. This one.
Sorry.
So
It's on, it should be.
I reviewed the revised plans that were submitted, and when this application came in the zoning department, the ordinance was slightly worded different. It required dwelling units to include the basement. If it's finished basement, then it has to be included in the floor area calculations. In the past 2 months, we have had similar cases in the past where the basement was becoming an issue, and there were a lot of applications coming to the zoning board for FAR variance. So I presented an ordinance in front of the council and the planning board. The council is currently reviewing it, but what that amendment does, it revises the definition for gross floor area and net habitable area ratio. And any residential unit will be able to exclude finished or unfinished basement from the area calculations. So when I reviewed this application 2 months back, I included it included the basement because it was a finished basement in the area calculations. And so the FAR was 0.9. But now with the revisions, we excluded that 400 square feet from the calculation. Plus, the applicant has reduced the size of the house. They have tried and matched the setback of the existing houses. They've matched the setback of existing houses. So most of the houses on that street are at 6 feet. This house will be built at 6 feet. The house is 1,500 square feet. I don't know if they can shrink it further. I don't think it's possible because the ground floor is only 882 square feet. So, and one thing we have to keep in mind that most of the lots in this area are significantly undersized. So the R5 zone requires 5,000 square feet as a minimum lot size, and most of the lots in there are either 2,000 or 2,200 square feet. So this is a small lot, but most of the lots in the neighborhood are the same size, and they do have similar houses that are the same scale. So I don't have any further questions or concerns.
You satisfied with the changes that they made?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Guerra, do you have anything you want to
And
add?
with me.
Board members of this witness to my left, any questions?
I believe back in July, we talked about the sewer drains that are on this corner, right in front of the house. There's one on each corner.
Yeah, they'll remain.
They're gonna run right here at the corner,
Correct. They're still there, but
but not on
the
yours.
rendering didn't keep them in. Just because in order to make the rendering work, our file overrode it.
Is that all right with you?
The sewer drains remain. Yep.
Okay, Mr. Scoggin?
That's acceptable, yes.
Anybody else on my left? To my right? Mr. Sachs?
Yeah, just a couple clarifications, and perhaps we can include these as conditions. So since the basement will now be unfinished, I think if this application is acted favorably by the board, I'd like to see a condition, Mr. Chairman, that we could put in the resolution that it will be for personal storage only. Obviously, it will not be utilized for any residential occupancy in that basement. There'll be no bathroom, no shower. Certainly, you're probably going to have a furnace down there, so you're going to have heat, and I'm sure you're going to have lighting. But again, no residential occupancy in that basement, no bathroom, no shower, no commercial activity conducted out of that basement.
That's acceptable.
Good with all the board members? They understood that? Good. Anything else, Mr. Sachs? Anybody else on my right? No? You have any other witnesses you're going to present?
No, our planner testified last time when we went over the variance requirements, and Mr. Cook would be my only witness unless the board needs to hear from somebody else.
I'm going to go to the public if you have no further witnesses, sir.
No further.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open the public portion on this. Is at 283 Bayview Drive. It's listed as 23-18Z, Coast International, construction of a single-family home. Anyone want to be heard in this matter, please raise your hand. Come forward. I'll start with this woman right here who raised her hand. Yes, ma'am. And then someone over there will be next.
Come on up,
You can
ma'am.
come forward, ma'am. Yeah, however it's easiest to get here, but. If the light's on, I think it's on. The light's not on.
Hold the red button in for 2 seconds. And the red light should come on.
Ma'am, Board of Attorneys, did you testify before?
I did.
You did. Okay, just say,
Yes.
you'll be stating your name, spelling your name and your address for the record, please.
First name is Catherine, last name is Cardos, K-A-R-D-O-S, 321 Lincoln Avenue.
First name was what, ma'am?
Catherine.
Catherine.
With
And if
an
you have testified, the Board Attorney's going to advise you that you're still on
You're
the
still
road.
under oath, ma'am.
A. No problem.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Oh, thank you. Well, firstly, I'd like to thank you for looking into that wall.
Into
so
the
that we
microphone,
can
ma'am. They
make-
have to pick it up. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for modifying that wall into a railing situation. It really, I feel much better. However, I'd still like to address the roof deck and the necessity of a roof deck. I can't see the plans from here.
You can step forward.
That appears to be a balcony, a second floor balcony. Yeah, okay. I have a concern about my privacy with a roof deck. I drove around a little bit, and on Bayview, I counted 3 second floor balconies currently, no roof deck. I went to Shoreland, and I counted 10 second floor balconies, no roof deck. I'm concerned because should the house be sold somewhere in the future, I don't want parties occurring. I mean, this roof deck is right in line of sight with my porch, my living room, my driveway, my house. And I feel it's a privacy issue, that, my privacy is being compromised with a roof deck. I really still don't understand the necessity of a roof deck if you're having a second floor balcony. That's all I'd like to say.
Okay, thank you very much for coming forward.
Thank you.
The board takes note of your comments. Who was the other woman that raised her hand over here somewhere? Okay. Would you come forward, ma'am? Did you testify before?
No.
Okay.
Ma'am, please raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the true self you got?
Yes.
Please state your name, spelling your last name and address for the record.
Shirley Pastoressa, S-H-I-R-L-E-Y, P-A-S-T-O-R-E-S-S-A,
Just one more time, no one can hear you, maybe you have to speak a little louder.
Okay.
Can you spell your last name again?
Yes, Pastoressa,
And your address, ma'am?
323 Bayview Drive,
Thank you.
Barnsucker.
Okay, go ahead, man, what would you like to tell
I
us?
I would like to see.
Sure, go right ahead. Here's the other one, man.
This is,
It's two pages.
okay. This is right across from my bedroom window. And that is my, my sanity.
Can't hear.
Yeah, you have to keep the microphone next to your mouth,
Not
you're not picking it up.
The deck on the roof. On the corner.
The deck above the second floor?
Yes.
Okay.
This is my bedroom window.
Okay.
Right across from this deck.
So those windows would also be,
Yes, I would hear everything that goes on over here.
oh, okay, it's
This
noisy
being
you're
up.
talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
This being up high is right here, across from my property. And the woman here, who is here with us too, has no view from her front door. I have pictures of the house that used to be here, which was set back way past her house, where her door was open for light and to be able to see anything, if you want to see them. And this whole side here was all open from here to here. I mean, we had a total view then. And here's the stop sign here, right on my property. The stop sign is back here. You can't stop there and see what's coming.
Okay, well, the placement of the stop signs are by regulation, and by the.
There's school buses that come through here
No,
all day long.
I understand your concern, but this board doesn't have jurisdiction over where the stop sign goes or where the
No,
stop
but I'm
line-
saying you have to stop
No,
here.
no, I understand
And you
that.
can't see.
But I'm merely saying that the board doesn't have jurisdiction over stop lines and stop signs. Those are established as a matter of fact by footage from I believe, the center of the intersection.
There's a sewage drain here too.
Yep,
Where-
that picture, that rendering does not show that. That question came up.
And let me ask you a question. When you said you had a view, what did you have a view of?
My kitchen window is here,
Right.
and I had a view of everything, the water.
Okay, all right. So you're concerned about the fact that you won't have the view of that water any longer?
Where we did when the other house was
Okay,
there.
all right. I will
But
tell you
my,
this.
my concern is the noise.
I understand, but let me just address the issue of the view, and you're not going to like my answer, I'm going to tell you right now, because the New Jersey appellate courts have determined that a view is not a protected right. There's a lot of case law to that effect. So I understand you're not happy about that, and I
Okay.
can understand that, but at least from a property right to be protected, the state of New Jersey court system has already ruled on that issue, so.
Okay, but a backyard on top of the roof across
Well, that's-
from my bedroom window is
I understand,
a problem.
and that's what your neighbor also testified to, so.
All right,
And plus, I have people looking in my windows also.
Okay, the board takes note of your comments as well, ma'am. Thank you. Anybody else in this matter? Yes, ma'am. Did you testify at the last hearing? Board attorney swear you in.
Please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, please state your name, spell your last name, address for the record.
Suzanne Linfante, Linfante,
And your address, ma'am?
282 Bayview Drive. I live next door to the lot.
Right, okay.
I have the joy. Can I see it? I haven't seen the
Go ahead.
plans yet.
Yes, help yourself.
So, wow.
It's 2
Okay.
pages.
That's- Well, I mean, I have the same concerns as my neighbors of privacy. I mean, and of noise on the rooftop. So
Would you
I
remind the
just
board
want
where-
to.
exactly where you live?
I live there.
Okay. Right next
So
to
I live right next to it.
Okay.
So and there's not a lot of space in between. I don't know how close they're going to be to the fence that's adjacent to my yard, but my fence is only maybe 2 feet from my door to begin with, so, you know, my front door is on the side of the house here, so I think, yeah, it looks like it will be basically blocking my whole front door and blocking, you know, and I mean, I know that's my issue, but I'm just expressing my concerns with everything. The noise, the privacy, and just I don't, it's a big house.
Okay. The noise, the privacy, and you feel it's too close to your lot line?
Well, I don't know, I can't tell from here, to be honest with you, and
We're going to
it's,
find out what the number is.
and I know it's
What
gonna
is
be.
the number?
So the side lot line is variable. At the rear of the lot, it's 2'3". The right by her front door is.
Hold on.
I apologize. At the rear of the building, it's 2'3", but adjacent to where her front door is, it's almost 7 feet. Sort of right at this front portion here. Yeah. So, and then your building's 3 feet from the property line or more? From your side. So I think there's about 10 feet between her front door and our wall. And the wall that's there, actually, from a privacy point of view, we have no windows in that wall. So you won't have people peering into your front door.
Anything else you want to tell the board?
Just the rooftop deck, yeah.
And the rooftop deck?
Just a concern.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question of Mr. Cook. How high is the wall that surrounds that roof deck?
Up here, it's the code height for a safety rail, so it's 42 inches above the roof surface.
And what's the height of the house what's the height of the house up to the top of that safety wall?
I have to get another piece of paper, hold on. It's 2510.
Okay. So it's below the 30, 35.
We are well below, yeah.
Well below that.
Yeah.
Let me go back to the public. Anyone else? Sir? You're next. You did not testify previously?
Yes, I did.
You did testify. The board attorney will warn you, you're still under oath, anything you say, okay?
So what's just state your name for the record again, sir?
Robert Pastoressa.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Pastor. You're still under oath.
Right. Back in the day, I took pictures of the house when they took all the shrubbery down and all the trees. And if you don't mind looking at these.
Well, the board attorney will look at them first, before the board looks at them.
Also, my concern is my neighbor across the street that lives next to the empty lot. There's a stream that runs down Lincoln. She has a sub pump in her dining room. She keeps pumping out water from the stream. Now, if you're going to put a basement here, that's going to be a problem. You're going to be interrupting that stream that runs down Lincoln.
Where are you talking about on this picture here? This is Lincoln?
It runs right down here along all these houses.
Oh, behind it.
Right, on Lincoln, and it comes out in front of her house. There's like a little sewer thing cover there. In front of the lady that was this up here, there's a little sewer right in front of her house.
Okay, so what does the sewer have to do with it?
The stream to have a vent to go out to the Raritan Bay.
Is it a stormwater management issue, or?
No,
I'm not quite sure.
a constant stream of water going down.
Right, it's not a natural stream, it's just, it's some type of drainage pipe that leads to the bay, is that what it is?
I didn't investigate that much, but I know that it's constant water going down the middle of that block. And another concern is the rooftop, the noise, and on Lincoln, it's a handicapped person that lives up the block, and buses go up that block constantly, 4 buses each day, up and down that block. With this house in that location, it's a blind spot. Whether you got a stop sign, crosswalk, it's a blind spot. And Bayview Avenue is like an S. These cars zoom by over the speed limit. And if you're not careful, and you don't stop at that stop sign, someone's gonna get hurt. Seriously, someone's gonna get hurt.
Mr. Pastoressa, in terms of these 4 photographs you've provided to me, these were taken by you?
Yes.
Okay, and they depict the house that used to be at that location?
If you build that house,
Well, no, my question is, it shows a white house in dilapidated condition. That's the house that
Right.
used to be on that lot?
right,
Okay, and that house was a 2-story house?
two-story house.
Okay.
Clark, you want to see this?
And I'll mark these, the series of photographs as 01.
How many photos?
4 photos.
Could I just ask the witness, does he know when these were taken?
They were taken before the house was condemned because George had numbers of cats, and the house was condemned because he didn't take care of the cats. Then he went to the hospital because his leg was infected, and he passed away in a nursing home.
Okay. Do we have an approximate date, or is this several years ago, or just months ago?
Approximately 7 years ago.
7 years ago? Okay.
7.
We'll let the attorney
It
review
appears that
them as
there's
well.
some demolition equipment on the property. There's a Caterpillar vehicle.
You know, that's when the EPA, the fire department, if you remember, the police department, the news, everybody came because of the cats that were in the house, and it was condemned, and that was the day that bulldozers was going to take down the house because everyone kept breaking into the house.
At the point you took these pictures, do you know if any part of the house had already been removed?
No, there was all trees in front of the house before that.
So somebody removed the trees? I'm just trying to get a clear picture.
They removed the trees first, and then they were going to take down the house.
Okay. Do you know for certain whether any part of the house was taken away
No.
when you took the photo?
No, that's the exact picture of the house.
Can you just describe best you can where the trees were located? Were they on the corner? Were they in front of the house?
In front of the house.
Okay. And the stop sign would be across the street. This is Lincoln Avenue over here?
Stop sign would be on my side of the street.
Okay. So were those trees obstructing the stop sign there?
No,
Okay. But they're not in this picture, the trees, so we can't tell,
no,
right?
we can't tell.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to pass these so the board can take a look. I'll start one there, right, and then we can pass them back.
I'm gonna finish up the detail photographs.
Sure.
Anything else, sir, you want to tell us?
No, that's it.
Thank you for coming forward.
Thank you.
The board takes note of your comments. There was another woman, I thought, yes, in a black and white shirt. Please come
Come on,
forward.
man.
You haven't testified before, correct?
First time.
All right.
Board attorney will swear you in.
Please raise your right hand, man. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state your name, spelling
Ariel.
your last name and address for the record.
Ariel Les. My last name VELEZ. 284 Lincoln Ave.
What was the first name?
Ariel.
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 The lad, right?
Mhm.
Thank you.
284 Baby, right?
Lincoln Ave.
Lincoln.
Yeah, I'm literally
Sorry.
behind the house. I haven't seen anything what the new house is supposed to look like
Okay.
either.
He'll show you the other picture as well.
My only concern is like how far back, like this is the driveway. This is where the driveway is gonna be. My thing is my house sits right there. So there's like a little bit of a walkway and then the fence. So I'm not too sure on how that's gonna look. So wait, where is the, this is gonna be my lot right here? Oh, this is it here.
This is the parking.
Oh, okay. So then this is my lot, so we don't really have much of a space between the two, or how?
We are meeting the required rear setback requirement.
Mhm. Yeah, sure.
We're
Speak up.
Yeah, we're meeting the required rear setback requirement, which means the building is as close to your house as possible. We're not asking for a variance in that regard. Okay.
My thing is that my bedroom is literally right at the gate. Like I literally open my window and I have a gate there that just divides it into lots. My concern, like I said, is at the rooftop and kind of the second floor. You know, I can't have my windows open. I can't open the shade. My thing is that if I try to get natural light in my room, I have this big building blocking it. You know, house. I'm sorry, this big house blocking lights from coming into my bedroom. The fact that there might be noise, you know, I might not have privacy in my own backyard. That is a little bit of a concern for me too, because my house kind of sits like right in the middle. So the fact that if I just open my window, I have a view of the lot. And if the house is going to be there and there's a second floor and the rooftop, it's a little bit of a concern for me and my privacy and my family.
How long have you lived at 284?
A year now.
So you've only known it as a vacant lot?
Yeah, so this is new to me.
this is all new to me. The fact that, you know, there was nobody there and the fact that there's going to be something there now is a little bit of a concern, you know, of privacy. The fact that there was no one there before and I felt a little comfortable with opening my blinds and being able to, you know, just to be around my house. The fact that now that this is going to be a house there, I'm a little concerned with that. And the noise, if there are going to be parties, you know, just different things. That's my concern.
Okay. You know that the owner of the property has a right to develop that property, right?
No, of course.
Okay.
Yes, of course. It's an open lot. I mean, it's...
Yeah, I mean, I know that happens, that people, you know, move in somewhere and they
Oh, no,
and they
no,
have a
no.
wooded area next to them, and the next thing you know, there's houses going in, but...
No, I know that prior to this, before us moving, there was a house there,
Okay.
and the whole situation, it was just, my concern is the privacy, the fact that if I open my window, his window's probably going to be there.
On the other side of your house, how close is that property? The next house?
It's a backyard.
It's just the backyard?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we literally kind of share a backyard. If you like look over the fence, it's one big triangle, or one big square, and everyone has their own little square.
Have a virtual city open? Could you anybody have virtual city open? Could you?
Ma'am, did I hear you say your house is your bedroom window is 6 feet from this house? Because that's not...
Oh, no, I didn't say
Okay.
6 feet. No, I
Okay.
said the fact that if I open my window, I literally have a gate there, and the property's next door. I didn't say 6 feet. No.
Okay, because I'm just looking at the plan.
No.
The end of the house is 25 feet from the property line.
Okay.
And there's a driveway separating the end of the
The two.
house and your property line.
Mhm.
And then how close is your house to that property line?
Sure. I know we just have a piece of like 4 trees, and that's it. And then it's the property line from there.
Okay.
I'm going to show you an overview here.
Sure.
This is Lincoln, this is
Mhm.
Bayview. Where is your house?
Right here.
After those trees, right?
Yeah. So my bedroom is literally right here, and yeah, right there. That's my bedroom.
Okay.
So the property, obviously, this is where the house is going to be. So that's just my concern.
Okay.
You know.
And these trees,
That's literally on the border of the 2 properties.
but they're above, so there's a view underneath
Yeah.
the tree is what you're saying?
Yes, they're really big trees. You can literally see right through them. I think there are 4 or 5 trees that are on that property.
So, your house is actually closest to... Is it Linfonte? The side of her house is near the back of your house, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Go past this. I'm going to just show the board members what she's talking about. This is her house with the brown roof. Here's the lot that we're talking about. Here's her house.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the house is kind
Ma'am,
of like
talk
a big.
to the microphone.
Oh, the house is kind of like a big Z.
Hold on.
Wait, stop. Okay. Mr. Stoner, what was the question?
I'm wondering if a bedroom's on that side of the house.
Yes. My bedroom is on that side of the house.
Thank you.
Here's the lot. This is Lincoln, Bayview, this. Well. Okay. Anything else you want to tell the board?
No, that's all.
Thank you very much for taking note of your comments.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Last chance, anybody else on this matter this evening? Okay, I'll close the public portion. Mr. Blocker, final comments?
We have nothing further.
Ms. Sawant, having heard, I'm going to ask you a question. Having heard some of the comments, you were satisfied that the house has been moved back far enough, or at least I should say the view, the site triangle is going to be fine. It complies with, it's under the height, and
Complies with the rear yard setback. It matches up with the existing setback of houses on Bayview Drive.
okay. All right, having heard the public portion, any comments from the board on my left?
Can I ask one question
Go
first?
ahead.
How do you drain those decks when it rains? There's no gutters or anything like that?
There'll be a downspout.
One downspout?
Yeah, probably else all that would be required.
Anybody else on my left?
What's missing here?
None? On my right? Mr. Thompson?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to understand. Originally, this was a lot that was purchased from the person who was condemned or whatever, right?
I can't speak to that. It was a vacant lot when we got it.
We could look it up, but it was an individual owner. The house, I don't believe, was in foreclosure or anything of that nature, but there was an individual owner of the property. My client did purchase it vacant.
So it was purchased as a non-building lot because it was undersized?
No.
It's a buildable lot.
Once it is.
No, I mean, it's in a residential zone, and certainly you could, quite frankly, I guess, you could have built, if the footprint was there, you could have built the same house that was there before. That would not have been, it wouldn't have even been before this board. But they're seeking to build somewhat larger house, they need some bulk variance relief and some D4 variance relief.
Mrs. Wan?
In R5 zone, minimum lot size is 5,000.
We're going to need a microphone for the planner.
For the R5 zone, the minimum lot size is 5,000. Most of the, yes, most of the houses in that neighborhood are undersized. So they are mostly in the same range as this house, 2,000 square feet to 2,500 square feet. If it was a conforming lot, so if it was a 5,000 square feet lot, based on the allowed FAR, there could have been a 2,000 square feet house. Now, because the size of the lot is half the size, somebody could have put in, they originally proposed for a 2,000 square feet house. And that's when I commented that because the house is big, the FAR is 0.92, and so you have to shrink it down. They reduced the size of the house. Now, the proposed house meets the rear yard setback. It meets the existing setback on Bayview Drive. So the ground floor of this proposed home is only 882 square feet. I don't know if they can shrink it further. The house is 1,500 square feet. So if it was there are houses there that are the same size as this house. I don't know if they can shrink it further,
There's
honestly.
existing homes on it.
Yes, actually,
2,500 that are 1,500 square feet.
yes, and in fact, the first time I prepared a memo, there is a sheet in here, I don't know how clear that looks, but it actually shows properties that exceed that minimum 0.4. So we as the planning department at some point will have to reevaluate the area and look at the minimum lot size, look at the FAR, but at some point we'll have to take a look, because what I notice is most of the houses in that area are on undersized lot.
Say over 50%.
More than 50%.
Yeah, more than
yes.
50%.
Yes.
And the only other question I have, if you had a regular pitched roof on that instead of that top deck, it would be in violation of the height?
No.
I don't think so.
No, but it would make the building significantly taller.
You would probably get closer
Right.
to the 35-foot.
We would be closer to the height limit, but we would still be well under it, yeah.
Anything else, Mr. Johnson? Anybody else on my right?
Just a point of clarity, my client bought the property, the house had already been demolished. So if he wanted to rebuild the house, he would have had a pre-existing non-conforming use that was there. But because the property was entirely vacant, the prior house did not conform, so we would have had to come back to the zoning board even to build the same exact house that was there.
And I think you put that on the record during the first, during your first hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, with all the same variance
Yes,
requests.
yes. You know, the only thing, sir, that it seems to resonate, that the board has heard is, one, there was 5 people from the public that got up. 4 of them talked about the roof deck. I can't tell this man what to build, the owner of the house, but it seems that that's a sticking point for the neighbors. I'd like to make everybody happy here, so I don't know that everyone's going to go away happy, but the truth is, perhaps if you did get rid of that roof deck, we wouldn't have the complaints that we're hearing. I can't force you to do anything. We'll gladly take a vote. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but if you want to take a quick break and speak to the owner to think about that, it's merely a suggestion. Mr. Sachs, do you think that?
I think if you want to discuss that, I mean, I think that seems to be the concern of a number of the residents, and, you know, maybe it's worth taking a 5-minute break just to discuss that with your client.
I assume that he was doing this probably not for his own. He's going to sell this home, I would think, and he's going to, and the attraction would be you could sun yourself, I guess.
Yeah, well, it is on Bayview Drive. It does front the Raritan Bay.
I
It is
understand
an amenity. It's aesthetically pleasing.
I know.
He would intend on selling this, so I don't think the intent is he's going to find some spring breakers who want to come to Lawrence Harbor and hang out and throw keggers. But
I agree with you.
that's just my personal opinion from growing up in Central Jersey. Yeah, and because that the setbacks are close, even though the rear yard setback is conforming, this is a tight lot, and it provides an extra amenity area so that people do not need to congregate closer to the other properties outside in the back.
Okay.
That's all. But that being said, we'd be more than happy to take a couple of minutes to discuss this.
All right, I think that would be great for you and your client and maybe perhaps for the public, okay?
All right.
We'll stand in recess 5 minutes. All right, next matter for the evening is 12-18Z. It's Fountains at OB LLC. Block 10253, lot 9.11, 3 Mill Road, 58 age restricted apartments, two-story buildings, a clubhouse, a gazebo. This is the R20 zone. It's going to require a D variance. Stephen Goins representing the applicant, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us back. Again, this is our third hearing on this matter. Normally, I would not have a super lengthy introduction because the board is pretty familiar with this application. We did submit revised plans. What you're seeing right here is a new exhibit that we have submitted for this presentation tonight. It is an architectural rendering of the proposed buildings. I marked that A8, and I believe Ms. Silverman is circulating it. I'm sorry, I marked it A9. The A8 is going to be a rendered site plan that our engineer will talk about. Like I said, normally I wouldn't have a lengthy introduction, but I know that my wife's grandfather, George Pressler, has the application next on the agenda, so I'm going to be very long-winded and give him as little time as possible. So, in any event, as the board will recall, the initial proposal for this application was a 75-unit age-restricted development. It was proposed to be in three-story buildings up to 40 feet in height. That proposal, the initial proposal here, required several variances, including use variance relief, obviously for the multi-unit residential project, floor area ratio variance for an FAR of 0.41, where 0.17 is permitted, density variance relief to permit a density of 11.6 units per acre, where 1.8 is permitted, height variance relief to permit a height of 40 feet and 3 stories, where 35 feet and 2.5 stories is permitted, and several bulk variances. Probably most significantly to the board, the public, and the board's professionals was the landscaping ratio, which was initially proposed at 50.2%, where 55% is permitted. So we did obviously have 2 hearings on this matter already. We received many comments from the board's professionals, and the public. Throughout the course of this application, we've received a few review letters from the board's professionals. We received another one dated October 23rd, 2018. And we can comply with all the recommendations in that letter. We agree to comply with all the recommendations in that letter, some of which would be deferred to the site plan phase of this application if we get there. And to the extent that items in that letter require testimony, we will address those tonight. What you see now, and I think for everybody's reference, if you look at the what I've marked as Exhibit A8, which is the rendered site plan prepared by Bowman Consulting, you'll see that the current proposal dramatically reduces the overall scope and scale of the project from what was initially proposed. Most strikingly, obviously, is that one of the buildings has been removed. The unit count has been reduced from 75 to 58. The applicant does still propose to meet its affordable housing obligations on site. Some of the amenities, the pool and some things like that, have been removed just to reduce the overall scope and scale of the development, leaving more green space and more trees. There's still walking paths, there's a clubhouse, so that the residents will have some amenity space. But overall, what we tried to do was keep the property more to the extent that we can, keep it more in keeping with the character of the neighborhood and leave a lot of the mature trees that are already there, provide more greenery. The requested density variance has been reduced to 9 units per acre, where it was originally 11.6 units per acre. Our FAR variance has been reduced to 0.24, where it was originally 0.41. The landscaping percentage has been increased so as to make this project now comply with that bulk standard. And again, the overall size and scope of the development, largely in response to the comments that we've received from the board and the public, has been reduced to reduce any perceived negative impacts that this development would create. So I showed you the new architectural rendering that we brought tonight, and the intent of bringing that exhibit tonight, obviously the renderings and the floor plans and things like that would be submitted for the board's review in the event that we get to the site plan phase of this application. But I think as the board can see from this rendering, it's the applicant's intention to build a beautiful project here with a lot of attention to detail. The idea here is that the applicant is providing a housing type that is in need in the township from the applicant's marketing efforts and research in town. He understands that age-restricted housing is something that is needed in town. And the idea is to provide a beautiful product that both the residents of this project and the township can be proud of. Obviously, that's beneficial from the applicant from a marketing standpoint because he wants to create as beautiful a product as he can. I'm going to ask Michael McKenna, who is filling in tonight for Sean Delaney. Both of them are from Bowman Consulting, both principals at Bowman. And he will walk you through A8, which is our rendered site plan. I already went through some of the site plan elements that we have changed, the added green space and things like that. The point being that after hearing the board's comments and some comments from members of the public, we have endeavored really to reduce the scale of this so that it's in keeping with the neighborhood. I think maybe most principally is that the height of the proposed product has been reduced from 3 stories to 2. We're going to comply with the height. It's now going to be 35 feet and 2 stories, which is compliant, whereas we were previously requesting a height variance for that, so that variance has been eliminated from our request. Obviously, at the past 2 hearings, we've heard a number of comments from the public, mostly negative. And although some of them have been, I think, repetitive and they've been numerous, they boil down to basically 3 things: scale, traffic, and stormwater. Scale I've already talked about, that we've tried to address the scale of the development. Traffic, I am going to ask Scott Kennel to talk to you about the traffic impacts. Scott previously testified, provided expert testimony that the traffic impacts from this were minimal, that traffic engineering standards could be followed and any applicable legal requirements could be met. One of the things that the board asked at the previous hearing was that we have a meeting with Middlesex County to discuss Spring Hill Road and some of the traffic safety measures that could be implemented on Spring Hill Road. We did have that meeting. Prior to this meeting, I submitted the meeting notes from that meeting to Ms. Silverman. Those meeting notes were approved by both the applicant and the Middlesex County engineering staff that attended that meeting. And Scott can get into the meeting in a little more detail, but the bottom line is that it was a positive meeting. The county provided positive feedback. We talked about some traffic safety measures that could be implemented at the corner of Old Mill and Spring Hill Road, and the county was supportive of those. And those are the type of things that will be possible if this development is allowed to proceed. And Scott will discuss that in greater detail. And then with respect to stormwater, I'm going to ask Mike McKenna to take you through stormwater. Again, we're meeting all our stormwater management on site. We're complying with any applicable NJDEP requirements. And I know we've heard a lot of anecdotal comments from the public about some stormwater issues in the area, none of which are going to be exacerbated by this development. We've already provided expert testimony to that. We've heard no credible, we've heard no expert testimony to attack our expert testimony. We've heard no testimony attacking our expert's credibility. The bottom line is that stormwater is going to be addressed for this project on site. If anything, our developing this site and complying with DEP stormwater requirements is going to be a positive and not a negative to the surrounding development. And then, you know, just with respect to the public, I know there's a number of members from the public here, and I'm sure we'll hear more comments from them later. And I would just ask the board to consider that, you know, we understand with a project like this, in a community like this, it's not going to be possible to necessarily make everybody happy all the time. But for the most part, we've heard negative comments from what our view is, principally two families that live in the surrounding area. And, you know, that should be weighed, those residents' concerns should be weighed against some of the other residents who initially maybe were not in support of this project and now have decided that they are in support of this project, and also the property owner, whose family has owned this property for a number of years, who has tried for many years to develop this property with different uses, and who has finally found something that they think they can develop this property with that will be a positive for the township, both from an aesthetic and a rateable standpoint. And it'll be a positive for the property owner as well and her family going forward. You know, a lot of times we hear, and it's true throughout the town, I'm sure, and throughout the country, that we hear loud and vocal objections from a strong vocal minority, and often that's all that we hear. But you know, we're here to present an application with a product that we really feel is going to be a positive for the township and something that the residents can be proud of. So, you know, basically our ask here tonight, and we would like to hopefully finish our application tonight and get to a vote, is for the board to weigh more favorably the positive aspects of this application that we are going to present and that we have presented versus any perceived negative impacts. Again, we've provided a wealth of expert testimony as to the positive impacts, and we think that testimony stands on its own. So again, I apologize to everybody except for George Pressler about the length of my intro. And now I'd like to call Mr. McKenna up to discuss the rendered site plan. So Mike, if you join me.
Mr. McKenna, can you please raise your right hand? I'll swear you in. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, please state your name, spelling your last name, professional affiliation for the record.
R. Michael McKenna, that's M-C-K-E-N-N-A, and I'm a licensed professional engineer and planner in New Jersey for the last 40 years.
You've never testified before us, though, is that right? I don't recall, but...
No, back in the 70s maybe, yeah.
Well, I was just a young kid then.
Yeah.
We'll accept him as his credentials.
So Mr. McKenna is testifying tonight as both a licensed professional engineer and planner. To the extent, we've already provided a wealth of planning testimony. To the extent that any questions come up, Mr. McKenna can answer.
Sure.
So,
Thank you.
Good, appreciate that. Right, okay, so Steve took all the thunder here. He basically told you everything that's new, but I'll put it on the board visually for you. 3 buildings are now 2. 3-story buildings are now 2-story buildings. We did add a fire access lane all the way around the building. Previously, it was terminated on each end. We also put a reverse curve or a switchback on the entrance driveway. There were some comments about looking right into the project, so this should solve that problem. Previously, we had the stormwater detention in 2 different basins on either side of the entrance road. It makes more sense, it's more efficient to put it on one side now. And we had a cul-de-sac over here on the north side, the right-hand side as you see it. That's now a hammerhead, and again an emergency access out to Old Mill Road. Parking complies with RSIS. And let me just make sure I didn't miss anything here. Stephen mentioned the reduction in FAR down to 0.24, zone 17. And an increase in the landscape ratio up to 58.3. I think that's the high spots.
yeah, I mean,
Plan changes.
I don't think we need to talk too much about it. I mean, that's essentially what we've got in terms of plan revisions. If the board has questions, if there's questions from professionals. Again, we will comply with all the recommendations of the October 23rd letter.
Okay, we'll go to Mr. Kalahio Kalani first. I'm trying. I'm trying.
So good last time. I think you made some really good revisions here. I guess one of my questions is you're going to have to remove some trees out here. Could you characterize for us what sort of existing trees are out, deciduous, evergreen sizes? Are they basically successional trees, or any trees of note out there that you're aware of?
I'm not aware of any heritage type trees. From my conversations with Mr. Delaney, personally, I have not walked that site. I couldn't tell you.
Because there is a tree compensation requirement.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and we would, you know, in terms of, I believe there was a memo from the Shade Tree Commission also, which talked about potentially a contribution for tree removal and a tree removal plan. Obviously, that's something that we would put together for site plan, tree contributions, ordinance requirements, things like that. We part of the developer's agreement, I imagine, so we would comply with that.
And we're gonna put Mr. Lavallo on the record tonight, okay?
The site is wooded. I mean, the aerial photographs are pretty clear about that.
Mr. Gay, anything else?
No.
Okay, Mr. Dodge, you have anything?
No, the applicant has revised the plans in accordance with our review memo and everything. Most of the engineering matters, we did note in our letter that they'll really get addressed should this application move to site plan. So, so most of my sizzle will be then. I did have a question. What's the intention as far as the drainage goes? We asked that question before. If you could just refresh the board. Is there any discharge at all for this system? Or?
Oh, yeah, it has to be. I mean, it's a 6.5 acre lot. It's on a hill. There's a change in grade between Route 34 and Spring Hill Road.
What's the plan for the discharge?
Pardon me?
What's the plan for the actual outlet?
Oh, there's an existing inlet down on Spring Hill Road. We're going to have to compensate for the increased runoff and connect to that.
So your drainage basin would basically meter the runoff from your site?
Correct.
Such that the runoff that goes into that inlet will be
Less than
reduced.
currently. Absolutely, yeah. The reduction is the plan, yes.
Okay.
And would go into the existing drainage system underground.
And NJDEP requirements require a reduction?
Yes. 50% on the large storms, a little less on the smaller ones. And what happens is when you do the water quality management, you end up reducing the small storms through the water quality management anyway.
And Mr. Chairman, the other matter that we discussed before was regarding the impacts to the roadway. The applicant did, like they said, they did meet with the county. Again, if this application does move forward to site plan, the applicant would be required to apply to the county planning board as well as the zoning board here for site plan approval. And at that time, there will be discussion regarding what needs to be done at the entrance to the site and also any off-site improvements. But again, that's something that will get addressed should this application move forward.
Okay.
That's all I have right now.
Okay. Fire Marshal Gertie, do you want to weigh in at this point for the planner, or you want me to wait till later for you?
I can do it quickly.
Go ahead. Go right ahead.
I spoke to the owner of the property earlier tonight. This plan is similar to the one I marked up and submitted. He has agreed to comply with it's a very similar layout with the fire lanes, 2 fire hydrants, 2 gates for the emergency access roads, and a striping wherever is needed and signage wherever is needed. So he's good with me as long as he goes on the record and says that he is.
We are. He is.
Okay. Mr. Lavallo, you want to weigh in at this point? Why don't you come forward? This is, for those who don't know, Mr. Lavallo, would you introduce yourself to the public, please, as the conservation officer?
Gary Lavallo, I'm the Township Conservation Officer. I guess, you want qualifications?
No.
Okay.
We just want, I just want
We know who you
people.
are.
We know who you are. We want them to know who you are.
A little late for that.
Yeah.
Just checking.
Okay.
I did walk the site. It is primarily wooded. To answer your question, it is late successional trees, composed of gums, maples. There's oaks coming in now, so it's been wooded for quite a few decades at this point. The site, as you know, slopes from 34 down to Spring Hill Road. The trees are doing a great job of stabilizing the slope. There's very little runoff that occurs through the understory. There is a slight depression on the north side of the property, which drains to Spring Hill. But the question of vegetation on there are 3 heritage trees on site that I verified. Those heritage trees will need to be located on the plan and have to be dealt with the way the ordinance specifies. So the loss of lot yield, things like that are not what's called compelling reasons to remove heritage trees. Unless the heritage trees are deemed to be dead, dangerous, diseased, decayed, dying, then that's the only other way that they can be removed. There is a compensation formula in there, but it does require an appraisal of the plants to be submitted to me for review and verification. And at that point, it's a determination made by the Shade Tree Commission whether or not they can be approved to be removed at that point. So they are easily located in the field. I worked off the land use, the use variance plan. I did not have a vegetation plan. I don't have a landscape plan. I worked off of that, and I located as best I could on that plan where the heritage trees are.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lavalla.
Okay.
Mr. Goen, do you have anything for Mr. Lavalla?
No, we would agree to comply with those, whatever the ordinance requirements are, and we would address Mr. Lavalla's comments during the site plan phase if and when we get there.
Okay. Of this witness, board members on my left.
The original plans had 2 stormwater management areas, and now you're down to 1. Is that because of the reduction?
No, it's actually because of the switchback on the road here. The road previously came out straight, intersected Spring Hill Road at a 90-degree angle, and it created 2 parcels left and right. This, switching it back gives you the opportunity to condense it into 1, which is really what you want to do.
And it's going to be adequate?
Oh, well, we're going to engineer it to be, yeah. We haven't done the site plan.
Okay.
On an area for area basis, it is adequate, yes.
Anybody else on my left? To my right. Sachs?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Goen?
Paul Scott Kennel.
Mr. Kennel, I believe you're still under oath?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
For those in the audience, please put your credentials on the
Yes.
record. We know who you are.
Scott Kennel with McDonough and Ray Associates. I have 35 years of traffic and transportation planning throughout New Jersey. I provided testimony to this board as well as to the planning board on a number of occasions, as well as 100 other municipalities.
Thank you. We accept. We just wanted
Okay.
them to know who you are.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Can we have his name again, please?
Scott Kennel, Kennel.
Go ahead, sir.
As a follow-up to Mr. McKenna's testimony, as was stated, this project has been scaled back down to 58 dwellings, or approximately 20% less than what was previously considered. And as a result, that will reduce the traffic projections to approximately 20 peak hour trips during the morning and afternoon when taking into consideration the 58 dwelling units considered here. And the conclusions will remain the same as far as the site access. I testified previously, it'll be a level service B with approximately average delays of 10 to 11 seconds per vehicle. That'll continue, if not be slightly better, with the reduction in number of units and traffic generation. Moving on to the discussion of Spring Hill Road and Old Mill Road. There was a meeting held with Middlesex County on September 27th. That meeting was held with the planning and engineering staff. And I basically provided them an overview of the experiences at this intersection, that where there is limited sight lines, and also apprise them of the accident history at this location, as well as the traffic counts we've conducted. And indicated that based on our initial investigation, this intersection would qualify for a four-way stop, or an all-way stop. And was advised by the county traffic engineer, Ken Praterati, that he would definitely endorse that with a proper application submitted by the municipality. Those requests of modifications to traffic control, because Old Mill Road is a municipal road, would have to be formally presented by mayor and council. But as stated in the meeting minutes that provided to the board, and based on my initial investigations on the number of accidents and the traffic volumes, it's my opinion that once we provide 8 hours of traffic counts for that intersection, that we would meet the warrants for an all-way stop. And as part of that, there'd be enhanced signing and striping provided. And I think the other benefit that with making that an all-way stop, it would help reduce the speeds that was raised by a number of residents at prior meetings. So in my opinion, that would be a benefit from a safety and operation standpoint, consideration for an all-way stop at that location.
And I don't have anything further for Mr. Kennel if the board of professionals have any questions.
We'll go to the professionals. Mr. Dargy, anything?
I do have a question for Mr. Kennel. It's essentially the, you know, what the Handing me a microphone's dangerous, my friend. So,
Better you than me.
so essentially, what the board is doing here is you're looking at, when you have a use variance, you're looking at what the difference is between what's permitted and what the applicant's asking for, and whether the deviation poses a significant detriment to the public good and the master plan and the zoning ordinance. The board already knows that. So, to that end, could you just give a comparison of what the peak hour, and I think we may have already done this, Scott, but just for, again, with the revised unit count and everything, could you give an actual numerical comparison of the permitted, of the impact from a permitted use of this property and what the applicant's proposing? Essentially the 11 single-family homes versus the 58 age-restricted homes, apartments. You're doing a great job.
Yes, so from a traffic generation standpoint, the proposed application would generate, as I stated, approximately 20 peak hour trips, where 10 to 11 single-family homes would generate 10 trips. So there'd be an increase of 10 trips generated by the site. As I stated,
Sir, excuse me, you'll have your opportunity to speak. Our court stenographer can only take the testimony that's under oath. So when we have the public portion, sir, you can testify. Thank you.
as I stated, the anticipated traffic generation from this site would still provide an excellent level of service B at the site access to Spring Hill Road, where it could operate efficiently and safely.
That's the only question I have.
Mr. Kay, got anything for? No? Okay, I'll go to the board members on my left.
Nothing.
On my right.
Yeah, I have a question for our professional. Where did you come up with 10 to 11 homes for 6.7 things?
Based off of the density in the zone.
R20? Because it usually comes out as like 7 or 8.
Well, our R20 is actually 20,000 square foot lot, which in this would come out to 13 homes. However, it's the density is 1.8 units per acre. So that comes out to 11 and change, which we round down to 11.
Okay, thanks.
We do have Mr. Prosco from
Yeah.
TPD.
Mr. Prosco. I'd suggest throwing it, but I guess that might be dangerous.
Yes, my name's Brian Proska, sitting in for Deanna Drum tonight. So our firm did review the traffic impact analysis that Mr. Kendall had submitted. We believe it was done in a professional manner and followed all standard traffic engineering parameters. The one question, I guess 2 questions I did have is, if we do change, if we move forward with making that a multi-way stop, would there be any impact to the operation of that intersection based on this development? And the second question would be, I'll just get them both out there so you don't have to go back. The clubhouse that's proposed, is that potentially a rental that the folks that are living here could use? And if it is, or it's open to renting, do you see any traffic impacts associated with that?
Well, it's my understanding, as far as the clubhouse, it's intended solely for the residents of the dwellings, so it's not a rental type of operation. I guess I'm correct, otherwise the attorney would have said otherwise. As far as the operational conditions, making it an all-way stop, it'll still have good levels of service. The total intersection volume is in a range of 400 vehicles. So making that an all-way stop, I mean, that is well below the capacity for a 4-way stop intersection. There will be, obviously, for people who travel on Spring Hill Road, now they have to stop there. Yes, will they be delayed slightly going to and from Control Road or to 34? But I think the overall benefits of safety outweigh those, the minor inconvenience they would have as a 4-way stop.
Just one more follow-up, and you may have touched on this for the board, but I think it might be worth a rehash since the by right use is going to generate less than the proposed use. Can you kind of talk about what the difference is in traffic characteristics for age-restricted type uses versus non-age restricted?
Yeah, I mean, as was stipulated in the traffic report that's submitted, an age-restricted dwelling typically has less household members, have household members that may be retired or work part-time, do not travel during the peak hours, during the conventional peak hours, commuter hours, and they don't have children, and it's just lower intensive, and some of these units could have one resident rather than, say, two. So again, it's a less intensive than a single-family dwelling that is much larger in living space than what's provided for these units, as well as the number of occupants. I mean, the other aspect of it, as a market unit single family with children, there's obviously much more activity with school events and things of that nature. So again, this is a much less intensive housing type than a single family dwelling. Thank you.
Board members, on my left, Mr. Cannell. Mr. Kettle. Am I right?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. So you mentioned the clubhouse and you said it's not going to be rented out to the public for parties. Are the residents going to be able to have parties in the clubhouse and use it for that use?
Let me just pause 1 second and get an answer. I guess the answer is that it's not really intended for that purpose for parties. It's only 2,000 square feet, so it's, meetings, gatherings, games, things like that. But it's for the residents of the community only. And there will be an exercise room as well.
Okay, Ms. Chevalier?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. I'm sorry.
Mr. Thompson?
Yeah, as far as the four-way stop, so no study was done on people coming off of 34? I know you can't do it till it's there, more or less, but is there a way to project it, how far that's going to back up? Because a lot of people take that turn off of 34. And
Given the volumes and the volumes of traffic and the critical period, if I recall, was in the late afternoon in the southbound direction, but there's adequate distance between the that intersection, Route 34, that you would not have excessive queues.
Okay, so we shouldn't see anything backing up on 34?
Oh, no. I mean, there's adequate distance, and again, the volumes are fairly low in Old Mill Road, so their turnover for people stopping there should have minimal impact on Spring Hill Road. Again, the primary purpose for the all-way stop is from a safety standpoint, because you have buildings and fences and things of that nature that cannot be moved to provide the adequate sight distance. If you had the adequate sight distance, I would feel we wouldn't be having this discussion. It's really based on the constraints at that location.
Mr. Sachs?
Yeah, Council, this application is acted favorably this evening. As a precondition of even submitting site plan approval, an application for site plan approval, I'd like you to go to Middlesex County first before you come back to this board.
Do that.
All right, I'd like them to analyze this situation. I'd like them to either issue their letter of approval or letter of approval with conditions. I mean, because I know Mr. Kennel did have a meeting with them. Obviously, that was a verbal meeting. It's not a meeting of record, so to speak. But certainly, this is something that has to be dealt with at the site plan phase. I know oftentimes, and I've done it in my private practice, sometimes you'll submit the applications contemporaneously with site plan. So in this scenario, I'd like you to do it, before you even come back here.
Yep, we would certainly do that. It's akin to obtaining preliminary site plan approval, getting outside agency reviews, and coming back for final. So we're happy to provide by that process.
Fine.
Anybody else on the board? No? Mr. Goen?
I have nothing further, no more witnesses, so.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the public portion then.
Sure.
Sorry. This is matter 12-18Z. I'm gonna open up the public portions, Fountains at OB LLC, 3 Mill Road. Anybody want to be heard in this matter? Please raise your hand. Sir, you're the first. Please come forward. I'll tell you what, why don't we put this on that table for now? Sure. And why don't you have a seat, sir, after the board attorney swears you in. Did you testify before at the last one?
Oh, I
Well, we'll swear you in.
So please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, something else?
I do.
Please state your name, spelling your last name. and address for the
Christopher
record.
Konefel, Konefal. I live at 72 Spring Hill Road, and I approve the building. The guys working with us, with everyone, he's trying his best. to get this building up. So I approve, so, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who else wants to be heard? Ma'am? Come right over here to the table. Did you speak at the last hearing?
Lee Price for us.
Okay, that's fine. Just state your name for the record.
It's Kathy Marin.
Can you stop, please?
Marron.
Mrs. Marin, I'll tell you that you're still on the record.
Your address, ma'am?
81 Spring Hill Road.
Okay. Go ahead, ma'am.
First of all, I take offense to this lawyer here. There are more than 2 families that have been testifying, so get your facts right. A couple of things. My first question is about this project. If it should go through, what's to stop the builder to come later on before to enact the municipal land use law?
Sorry, what was
The
the question?
municipal land use law. That's where the builder can decide that he's not selling, and he can decide, I don't want to be age restricted anymore.
No, this approval.
Have you heard of the
Hold on.
Northwood Manor?
One thing at a time. The board attorney's going to answer you.
Yes, okay. First of all, the approval, if this is granted, will be for age-restricted housing. All right? If the applicant decides to change that approval, they would have to come back to this board and seek, obviously, a use variance again, right? Because the use variance is being granted for this type of housing. Now, if your question is about Northwood Manor, that is an application, that was actually a lawsuit as well.
Right.
That I defended in this town a number of years ago.
Mhm.
And at the time, there was legislation enacted by then Governor Corzine.
Corzine, right.
All right. Actually, I'm very familiar with it because I was involved in many lawsuits
Yes.
successfully
Mhm.
on
I have
behalf
right.
of municipalities.
I'm
But
right.
what happened was that because there had been an influx of approvals in the 1990s and early 2000s for age-restricted housing, primarily through central New Jersey, a bill was passed through the legislature, initiated by the governor at that time, to permit developers to convert their approvals for age-restricted housing to market rate housing.
Right.
Okay. That law sunshined, so that law is no longer in effect.
It's no longer that.
So it's not yet. So what happened is a lot of builders were taking advantage of that and seeking to change their approvals. I will tell you that this board at that time, and this was probably 10 years ago, actually denied the change initially. We denied the change.
Right.
All right, and then we ultimately, I think, lost in court. All right.
And spent a lot of money on lawsuits.
Right, right. But again, that's a total different scenario.
Well, that's why I was asking.
Right, so-
Did you answer my question? Okay.
Yep.
And who did a study that we need more age-restricted developments in Old Bridge? We have plenty of them. Where'd the study come from? You say we need it. I don't think we need it.
There's no study. That's the applicant's decision. If the applicant decides that their target audience is age-restricted, then that's certainly...
I don't think we need it.
Okay.
I'm 55 and I'm not going to go in age. I don't know anybody who's 55 going to go in age-restricted. And anybody older is moving out of Old Bridge. Too expensive. And they want more. I don't think we need it. We have plenty of it. Also, I read somewhere, correct me if I'm wrong, that a builder needs to display notices at the entrance of their site showing the requested variances. I don't see any variances anywhere.
In Florida, maybe.
Not
No, I
in
looked in-
Old Bridge.
Not in New Jersey.
Okay.
Some towns,
It was a question.
some towns have required that, but that also has been litigated and determined to be in excess of the requirements under the MLUL, so we do not have to do that.
And then while we're sitting and you guys are pointing out stuff, we don't get to see any of this, like what you... Yeah, but when they're pointing to this. So we don't know what you're pointing at. I think that's very rude. We should be given... Right, but they're pointing. We don't know what you're pointing at. They don't point up there. So we don't know. When you're standing here
If you want the
talking...
planner to explain anything, I'll have him explain it to you.
Okay, next time I will. Also, the builder is making promises on Spring Hill Road, on a county road, to people. He's even knocking on doors. He knocked on our door, making promises that he can't keep. It's county road. He's saying I could do this. If you stop complaining and if you don't get on board, I'll build you this, I'll build you that. And then he promised he'll do something else, which is my neighbor's property. What kind of, you want to do business with, you want a guy like that in our town? He's promising to help with what you said, that you haven't seen any proof, because we didn't have a chance to get proof. The letter we got only talked about Old Mill Road. It did not, because it addresses 3 Old Mill, not Spring Hill. Which, by the way, another question, why is the entrance on Spring Hill when your address is Old Mill?
Oftentimes, properties will have 2 front yards, so that's why.
Now, I asked the builder that when he was on my property, and his answer was, too dangerous.
First of all, that would be hearsay to me because
Okay.
I don't know what your conversation was. But again, the determination of an address is based upon the post office for most reasons, so.
Okay, and then when he was talking to my husband and I, very nice, very polite, not complaining about that, and he kept saying, what's it gonna take for you to come aboard? And we were like, nothing. Then he threatened us. He goes, well, if this doesn't come, I'm gonna buy all other stuff. This one's gonna sell me this one's gonna sell me that. I'm gonna get 22 acres, and maybe I'll put a trucking distribution here. Would you like a trucking distribution? So I don't like being threatened. Also, is this the kind of person you want to do business with? Is this what you want in Old Bridge? And then you're talking about other neighbors that are now on board.
Please, towards the board, not towards the attorney.
Because this is the guy making these accusations.
He's not the attorney.
He's an
Okay,
attorney for the
well,
applicant.
we've been
You
here
speak to the
over
board.
20 years. These neighbors that have now agreed because they've been bribed, they're here a few years. I think the neighbors, the people on our block that have been here over 20 years should be taken more seriously and taken into account, as opposed to people that have been here a couple years and got trees taken out for free right after they had their meeting that we weren't invited to or told about. Then all of a sudden, they've changed their mind, and then they got trees taken down that they had problems with. Also, another thing, we're a historic homes community. We have 3 historic homes right on our block. We're a nice, small farming community, and we have 3 historic homes. I don't think this big thing belongs here. I mean, we're a, whatever kind of zone we are, I don't remember exactly what it is. And then this is it's not a small change, it's an enormous change. They're asking for way too much. Other notes. Also, my other note is, I was looking into the zoning board, and why they would grant, variances. I don't even know if it really falls under how you would be able, this is for you, able to, grant. It says, under G3, because 1 and 2, it just tells about zone granting. 3 talks about, by reason of an extraordinary and exceptional situation uniquely affecting a specific piece of property.
Ma'am, that's for a bulk variance.
Okay,
That's something.
it doesn't do that, then how about under number 4? It basically, who's more important, the builder or the residents?
Ma'am.
You guys would have to decide. I'm asking questions.
Yeah, and I'm going to answer for you. The variance relief that's being sought here is for a use variance. All right, that's the variance.
Well,
That-
these are all, then what would it fall under the variances?
It would fall under 40:55D-70D.
Then it wasn't here.
Well, I don't know what you have, ma'am, but.
I went online looking
Yes,
under
yes.
zoning board.
I'm not sure what you're looking at, but.
Why are you
it's-
doing that, like this? I'm not a jerk. You're very rude.
Ma'am, please. Would you like me to answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. So the municipal land use law governs how this board can act. It also gives the authority of this zoning board and planning boards to make decisions based on the municipal land use law. This board can only grant variances under a statute which is titled NJSA 40:55D-70. There are several subsections of that section. Section A deals with interpretations or appeals. Section B deals with interpretations. Section C deals with bulk variances, and I think you just read one of the bulk variance requirements. And then section D deals with use variances. And then there are 6 categories of use variances that can be granted by this board. D1 is a use variance, D2 is an expansion of a non-conforming use, D3 is a conditional use, D4 is a floor area ratio, D5 is a density, and D6 is a height variance. So what they're seeking here is a D1 variance. At one time, they were seeking, I believe, a D6 for height, but they've reduced the height of these buildings, so they no longer need a height variance. And I'm not sure if you're seeking... Yeah, and I'm not seeking... Yeah, and D5 is a density variance, which they're seeking, because they exceed the permitted density, and the floor area ratio is being exceeded slightly. I think it's 0.24, and what's required is 0.17.
Okay. And my last comment is about the noise. How are we gonna keep the noise to minimums with trucks going in and out, garbage trucks, delivery trucks, fire trucks? I mean, you know they're gonna be burning stuff and burning toast. If it's gonna be really age restricted and older people are gonna be in there, they're gonna be burning stuff. My mother-in-law lives in the age restricted. The fire department's there all the time.
Okay.
I mean, be realistic.
Okay, well, I'm not sure what that comment means, that people are going to be burning things.
I mean, not
Our crack fire marshals.
not lighting
are
a fire, but just, you know, it makes smoke and an alarm goes off and the fire department has to investigate.
That happens in everyone's house, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, but you don't call the fire department, but when you're in a age-restricted thing like that, it gets called.
Okay.
Oh, and will it be gas or electric, their stoves?
I don't think we've gotten to that point.
Really, that has nothing to do with
That has
this
nothing to do
board.
with this board. That would be with the construction department. But I would imagine it'll probably be gas.
And another reason not that many families are coming to this meeting was that only that really close were notified. The rest of our block has no clue.
Well, the requirement, again, under the
That's
municipal
why.
land use law, and let me finish, you're asking a question, I'm gonna give you an answer. States that you have to notify anyone within 200 feet of the property boundary. So if somebody lives 201 feet, they're not gonna get a notice.
Right, so that's why only a few families have come.
Well, but that's a state law, and
I
that
understand that.
complies with the municipal land use law, and it complies with the due process clause of the New Jersey Constitution.
Okay, well, I'm gonna make it my business to let the rest of the block and around the corner know also, because it's gonna affect Cottrell Road, as well as Cheesequake School. I'm sure they have no clue. And I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments.
Oh, and by the way, I almost got hit by a car today. Because it was 6:48, and they blew past the stop sign, so they don't pay attention to the stop sign. So a four-way stop sign's not gonna help.
Who's next? Come with the baseball cap over to my left. Come forward, sir. Board attorney swear you in?
I was, that's my previous.
All right.
Sir, just state your name and address.
Steve Hess, 66 Spring Hill Road.
And you're still under oath?
Yes.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to say about Bill and his group, they've made tremendous concessions. I didn't even know they eliminated the pool now, until just tonight. And they've lowered the height, which is great. And he's always been a gentleman, and whether you've been here 20 years or 2 years, you still have the right as a citizen to discuss your issues. My big concern, though, is they're saying about putting a four-way stop. Spring Hill Road is not the problem with the stop, it's Old Mill Road. And I think if you put a four-way stop, you're gonna make matters worse. Like someone brought up about backing traffic up onto Route 34. And then going in the morning, it's gonna back up down Spring Hill Road. And I have a question about, they're saying if there's 11 houses, there'll be 10 trips in the morning at peak hours. But if there's 58, which is 5.5 times as many houses, there's only gonna be twice as many trips, 20, because they're saying they're over 55, and there's not as many trips. I'm 60 years old. I'm retired from New York City Fire Department, and I'm out every day in the morning, going somewhere with whatever I have to do. So I have a question with their mathematics.
I believe they go off a
Yeah,
standardized.
let me explain.
Sure.
They probably go off the ITE, the Institute, someone will correct me.
Transportation.
Institute of Transportation Engineers.
Okay.
And it's national data for the most part, but it more or less, it's data that's been collected over many decades, and it tells you how many trips are generated from a normal single-family house. It breaks it down by bedrooms. And also, they have data even dealing with, with age-restricted communities as well. So it's data that is fairly accurate.
Mr. Plasko, would you?
No, the explanation suffices.
Oh, okay.
It explained where it comes from. I wanted to find out, where the numbers come from, how do they figure it out? And if you say it's a national thing, and we've talked before, I accept that.
And by the way, in New Jersey, I think if you would even pinpoint it in New Jersey, you would find that your typical, let's say it's a 4 or 5 bedroom home with teenage children or college-age children, are going to have more than perhaps even 2.
Okay.
They may have 3 or 4 cars in
All
their
right.
house. So
No, just so I have an understanding of it.
Yeah.
But like I said, my issue still is with if you're putting a stop sign on Spring Hill Road. Spring Hill Road is not the problem, it's Old Mill Road.
Yeah, and
that, you're gonna back traffic up even worse.
Mr. Hess, that's why I asked this applicant to make sure that they go to the county first before
Right.
they come back on a site plan. Because let me explain, and maybe the members of the public need to hear this as well. This is a bifurcated application. So what's being determined tonight is whether the use variance should be granted. They still have to go to site plan approval. If at any point during that site plan process, they cannot satisfy drainage issues, grading issues, circulation issues, traffic issues, cannot satisfy the county, this project's not getting built.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I
still a second phase.
had a couple of questions, I just wanted to get answers, and you're more than satisfied with what I needed to know. And, I just want to, like I said, Bill and the gentleman here, have been nothing but gentlemen with us, so I understand the other person's problem, and it's a separate issue, but I think they've been very nice to me personally.
Thank you for your comments. The board takes note. Who else? Lady, purple something there, I see. Okay, purple. Okay.
Sorry, it's
Okay.
in small places.
Your dog said you died for Halloween?
Yeah,
Very
she was
good.
a Pokemon.
I should try that myself, I guess.
Oh, I don't think so, it never comes out.
Well, that would be good for me.
Fair enough.
Ma'am, did you testify?
No, I have not.
Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state your name, spelling your last name, address for the record.
Shannon Nyhus, Nyhus, and I live at 75 Spring Hill Road.
Yes.
Lay down, sweetheart. I do still have a couple of really big concerns with this project. One being that I understand that the builder has tried his best to accommodate and make it fit toward the rest of, with the rest of the houses on the block. But there's only so much that you can do to make it fit with the houses on the block because it doesn't belong there. Because it's not single-family homes like everything else on the block. So I understand that he's made a concession with the size of the project and how tall the buildings are, but no matter what he does with these, even if he makes them look exactly like the rest of the buildings on the block, they still don't belong there because they're 2 gigantic buildings, 58 townhouses on a street that only has, I actually don't know how many houses are on my block, but it's not 58. So the density is a really big concern for me, and I don't know if there's anything that they can do about the density just because of the scope of the project. But, what is it, a variance of 9 units per square acre as opposed to 1.1? That's a very big concession to make. I mean, we're not talking about 1 or 2 times the amount that should be there or that it's zoned for. We're talking about a variance of 9 times. That's a lot. And at the beginning of this section of the meeting, it was brought up that 1 or 2 families, maybe even 3 or 4 families, have been the only ones raising objections about this project. Well, my neighbor was kind enough to start a petition online to get this issue out into the public more. And in just the couple of weeks that it's been online, it's gained 288 unique signatures. So we're not talking about 3, 4, 5, or 6 families that are objecting to this project. We're talking about almost 300 individual people. Just because they're not here doesn't mean that their voices shouldn't be heard. I actually pulled some quotes off of the petition that was
Well,
signed.
I'm going to caution you, you can't do that. First of all, the way the municipal land use law, we seem to be citing that this evening, so the continue to
Okay.
cite it, is that if somebody wants to raise an objection, they've got to.
They have to do it in person.
They have to do
Okay,
it in person.
that makes sense.
Your petition is not even evidential.
Okay.
Just so you know, all right?
Why?
Why? Because it's hearsay.
Okay, even if it has everyone's names and addresses on it?
Absolutely.
How do I make it not hearsay?
It's, the only way it doesn't become hearsay is if they come in and testify.
Okay, so I will have to get two, we're gonna need a bigger room. You know, it's, even if it is just anecdotal evidence, I hope that you guys take it to heart that this project doesn't belong here. If you want to build it somewhere else in Old Bridge where there's enough space for it and it's not on a single family home road, that's a whole other story. But, hold on. Sorry, I have to pull out my notes because I'm very bad at public speaking. All of the traffic studies that have been cited talk about traffic during peak hours. Were there any studies that were done on non-peak hours? Because, I mean, I know that retired people aren't on necessarily a fixed schedule like working people are, so they may not necessarily go out between 8 and 9 in the morning or home between 5 and 6 at night. Were there any studies that were done at like noon?
No, the reason being is that, again, peak hours when we're concerned about peak volume of traffic on the roadways. In central New Jersey, the peak hours are generally, and correct me if I'm wrong, 7 to 9, for lack of a better term, in the AM, and probably from 4:30 to 6:30 in the evening. So what you find is that's the heaviest volume of traffic. That's not anecdotal, but you can listen to any traffic report on.
Right, yes.
Well, let me just finish, ma'am. You can listen to any traffic report in the morning, and that will confirm that. The traffic at noontime on a random Wednesday afternoon will be significantly less than what you would find at 8 o'clock in the morning on a random weekday or 5 p.m. on a random weekday.
Okay, I understand. So the traffic for the rest of the day impacting the street doesn't matter?
And actually, Mr. Kennel, if you want to answer.
Yes,
that.
I think Scott wants to hear.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, if this use variance is approved and we proceed with further studies as requested by Middlesex County, there will be traffic counts at that intersection on an hourly basis from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. So we'll get the full day, we'll get the full picture of the traffic flows every hour through a typical weekday.
And should the variances be granted before that study is done? Because doesn't it kind of depend on the results of that study?
No, because just as Mr. Sachs has indicated, during the middle of the day, the traffic volumes are significantly lower. We looked at the highest traffic volume periods compared to the highest traffic volume periods that be generated by the proposed development to work at to review the critical periods. And during those critical periods, the highest traffic volumes from the site as well as from the street were levels of service are well within the acceptable parameters.
Okay. And my last, oh, I'm sorry. Do I have to talk into this? Have I been doing it wrong the whole time?
There's one in front.
Thank you. Thanks. My last thing was, in order to get approved for a zoning variance, correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not a lawyer, do you need to establish with proof the necessity to have such a variance?
What you need to establish is you need to establish that the proposed application satisfies one or several goals of planning as set forth, I believe, in Section 2 of the Municipal Land Use Law. And you also have to demonstrate that the proposed use satisfies negative criteria or poses no negative detriment to A, the zone plan, the zoning ordinance, the master plan, no significant detriment to the surrounding area.
Okay.
That's why you do a traffic study. And also, the site is suitable to accommodate this type of use.
Okay.
So there's, and the planner, I believe the planner did testify as to this at one of the earlier meetings, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, I was just a little confused because I believe when we started doing this whole thing, just tonight, whoever it was that was speaking, I'm sorry, I don't remember, said that there was some sort of, not like a scientific study, but some sort of evidence to back up the need to have an age-restricted development in Old Bridge.
Well, I think I can answer that. I said it was based on the applicant's own marketing research. That's all.
Would we be able to see the results of that research or anything, any kind of?
The applicant
No,
has to
and
decide, yeah.
no, and we don't need to provide it to justify the variance, so no.
Okay.
Anything else you want to tell us?
No, I think that's it for now. Thank you guys very much for hearing me.
Board takes notes of your comments.
Come on, Peaches.
Who's next? Sir? Testified the last one?
Yes.
Sir,
At
just-
all of them.
Just state your name again. for the
Sure, it's
record.
Ralph Mary,
And your address, sir?
81 Spring Hill Road.
You're still under oath, Ms. Mary.
Yep. You know, every time I come up here, I kind of say the same things. It's a 2-lane road with no shoulder. It's impossible to put this project here. It's literally impossible. I mean, the traffic on this road will be absolutely ridiculous if we do this. And putting the 4-way stop there will just create a huge backup on Route 34. If you guys have ever been there at 5 or 6 o'clock at night, the cars that go by my house, it's nonstop. If they have to stop every time they get to Old Mill Road, you're gonna have it all backed up to 34, to 9, it's gonna be a disaster. The other big issue I have, which I've said every time I've come up here, is with the storm water. All the water that comes on Spring Hill Road runs through my yard. If there's more water coming through my yard, it's going to be a disaster. My property values will be decreased significantly. My garage is going to be underwater, my basement, I mean, it's not feasible. It's absolutely not feasible. There's one sewer on both sides of Spring Hill Road that run through my yard as an easement on my property. All this water, now additional water, that's now going to come from this project is going to go through my yard. I mean, it's an impossibility for me. Like my property values will go down significantly, as will everyone else's on that road, because this is a single-family road and area that's putting 58 apartments right in the middle of it. Like, how is that even possible? It's absurd.
How come the townhouses up the road, Patrick?
Not at all, because they're down on the other side. So the water runs that way out to 34 or down Old Mill Road.
Traffic-wise.
Traffic-wise, they're going to all go out to 34 and make a left and go where they have to go, right? They don't
No
need to.
effect- no
They don't
effect.
need to make a right-hand turn to come down and go through Cottrell. That's all I have.
Thank you. Board takes note of your comments. Who else? Lady over there, wearing, yes, you, ma'am. Black shirt. And I know you've testified before, right?
Yes.
Just state your name again for the record, ma'am,
Kelly Gonzalez,
and your address.
72 Spring Hill Road.
You're still on the road.
Correct. Okay, I'd like to say that at no point I think I was being talked about. I live right next door to the property. I think you guys know I said that in the past meetings. At no point, I'm the one, I don't want it on record, I did have trees taken down recently. The builder did not pay for my trees. Gary Lavallo did my permit, everything. I paid the $2,700 for those trees. Yes, I've only lived in that house for 2 years. I've been an Old Bridge resident, went to Madison Park, Carl Sandburg. I'm not a transplant, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I know the area. I know Old Bridge. I grew up here. This building, yes, when I first came to the first meeting, I did not like the first plans. I did not like how the exit was so close to the hump. We had complaints about that. We had complaints about the trees, seeing it, that there was, you know, they're asking for a variance for trees to be removed, and there was too many, so it was gonna be an eyesore. As well as, you know, there were 3 buildings. I know another person had a problem with the pool was situated. Now, the entrance is moved away further from the hump, as far as they could go away from the hump. That was satisfied. Now, there's also more trees. I am right next door to this. If anything, my house lines up where my property line is. I actually line up with, sorry, I'll put this. So, on this side, over here. So where the house is and where the other property line starts is actually to the back. So my actual structure, my house, is the closest to these buildings. And I could live with that because these are not single family homes. I'm not having 3 backyards. My side property is not that much on this, a little over 2 acres. It's not that much on this side. I don't want 3 backyards. I don't want a regular apartment complex near me. I am happy with 55 and older. Maybe they're gonna be party animals at 55, I don't know. But I could deal with that because you know what? I plan on dying in this house. The amount of work that I'm putting there, I'm just gonna, that's it. So I'm gonna, yes, I may be only here for 2 years, but this is an investment. I plan on staying here, okay? And if I'm the closest one, I have to look at my window, see this. I'm sure with the trees that are gonna be there, he's already agreed to leave the trees up, so it's not an eyesore. Just on the one side of my property, we have planted, in the 2 years we've lived there, 93 evergreen trees that will divide my neighbors and us, let alone, we have in between those people is our house before they see this. So it's not like I understand the eyesore. I don't want my house to be an eyesore or even their project, but even my trees will help out other people. But, I mean, if it was a regular apartment complex or single family homes, I'd be completely against it. I spoke up at the first meeting about things that I was against. I was very verbal about the things that I didn't like. Yes, we did have a meeting. Some of us did have a meeting with the builder. He asked what our complaints were, which I think was very reasonable. We had complaints about the entrance was closer to this side, which was closer to the Humpton Road, which was closer to my driveway, which was going to make it even more difficult for me to get out. Now it's moved over. Okay, I can't complain about that. We complained about it. He moved it. About the tree issue, we all made us think about that. How can you come and ask for a variance for trees? Now you're leaving even trees up and even planting more. You know, how can I complain about that? I don't know there's nothing else I could say about it because now instead of 3 buildings, now it's 2 buildings. And there are less units, no matter what. Don't get me wrong. If somebody's, a millionaire sitting in the crowd and can buy this land and keep it green acres, no offense, but that would be fabulous, but it's not gonna happen. So I'm going to pick and choose my battle. I could end up living there the rest of my life and this get turned down or something else. And now I'm going to have single family homes where you could fit, 11 to whatever it is, 13 single family houses. My property line on this side is short to be where somebody can have their fence line or whatever and could peer into one of my bedroom windows. That's how close it is. Even though I have a little over 2 acres, my one side is larger. So if I have to live next door to something, I'd rather live next door to this than single family homes. And it has nothing to do with anything, like I said. He didn't pay, I don't know why anybody thinks that somebody paid for my trees to be cut down. You could ask Gary Lavallo himself or Linda in the department. But I spoke up and I feel like there's nothing else I could complain about because he's already made concessions about it. No matter what, if somebody comes, whether he builds or somebody else builds, pick and choose your battle. Because at some point, you're still, whatever it's a structure, whether it's a business or something, still may have a structural fire, and the fire department still may come. I may, knock on plastic, but I may have a fire, and the fire department, is going to come get me, God forbid. But I don't know. I just look at it as I'm picking and choosing my battle, and I feel like there's been a lot of concessions made about this, and I don't know. I think it kind of looks nice.
Thank you very much. Board takes note of your comments.
Thank you.
So Boy Scout on the end, yes. I know you testified last time, right?
I did. Sir, state your name again and address for the record.
James Nyhus, Nyhus. I live 75 Spring Hill Road, right across from the entrance.
You're still under oath.
I am. What I wanted to come up here to say was thank you to the builder. I appreciate what you've done to downscale the size of this project because at first I'll agree with everybody else. It was ridiculous, and now I don't think it's any less ridiculous, to be honest, because, quite frankly, the stormwater, as Ralph Marin had previously stated, is still going to be a major issue. And another thing, the entrance to this place. I know it was earlier stated before, but I'm still a little bit confused as to, I heard something about gates being put in the front of the entrance. Would anybody like to?
I don't think there's any gates proposed for the front. In the rear of the property along Old Mill, there'll be a gated access, but that's for emergency access, only for emergency vehicles.
Okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're standing in my front lawn, which is right across from here, right about here, so if I stand here, I can see directly on these two buildings where there used to be just woods. So if you'll agree with me here, that's kind of an eyesore. That's not pleasing to look at. It doesn't fit in with the rest of the neighborhood, and I get that. I don't really see how a two-story building would really fit in here, and it would fit anywhere else really, because this space is meant for a single-family home with a larger backyard, about anywhere from 2 to 4 acres. You know, their backyard would be where the parking lot and the two buildings would be, and the single-family home would be that. I would be happy with that. But another major concern for me right now is the traffic. When people do come out of here, and I know it's just an average, you can't really do anything until it's built, but on some days more than others, especially on holidays, there's going to be more travel. Am I wrong? With the more travel in the four-way stop, I know people blow past those stop signs. I've been there for people being T-boned because somebody ran the stop sign. It's not an uncommon thing. Not a lot of people see them. They're covered. Well, not really covered, but they're unnoticeable until you're 20 feet away from them, so you need to slam on the brakes. So basically what I'm saying here is that even if you impose a four-way stop, it's not going to help, but it's not going to hurt either. I'll agree with you there, but I see no purpose in it. And also, one last thing I would like to bring up is, I know it's your decision and everything, but I still don't think that this is needed here. I think that there are enough age-restricted homes in Old Bridge as is, and this just doesn't belong in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. The board takes note of your comments. I'm writing some down, so just wait 1 second. Who else? Ben? I can't see behind here, so if there's anybody there, middle, next time around.
Ma'am, did you testify in the past?
No.
All right, please raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, please state your name, spelling your last name, address for the record.
Donna Ibrahim, IBRAHIM, 18 Cary Drive. Okay, my main concern is the density variance and the environmental impact it's going to make to the area. I know that we're talking about survey studies and traffic studies during peak hours, but there's also a school there and a Little League baseball field there. So have we done, during that time right now on Spring Hill Road, the cars back up all the way to Old Mill during baseball season. So now there's not enough parking as it is. So now we're going to add to that, and the schools are different hours. They come in at 9 and they leave at 3. From 3 to 6, they're coming in and out. So,
Where's the Little League building? Man, on Schulmeister?
yes.
Okay, that's quite a distance from where we're talking about.
Yeah, but that's how they come through, because most of that development lives in Cheesequake. So they're all coming from that area.
Coming down, you're saying, into it. Okay.
Yes, I'm coming from that area.
Okay.
So, and my other concern was the stormwater. Right now, there's 2 sewers, and there's flooding currently. So we're looking to, how are we going to address that?
Well, If you wanna say
Yeah,
something,
we did address it in testimony. I can have Mr. McKenna address it again. Essentially, we are bound in designing this project to follow NJDEP stormwater regulations. And those regulations require that we reduce the amount of stormwater that's coming off the site currently. The intention is that whatever stormwater is leaving that site currently, it's going to be less based on this proposed development. That's why we have stormwater management features to capture the stormwater on site. That's why we leave existing vegetation to make sure that the stormwater impact is not as great, reduce impervious coverage from what we previously proposed. So I think it's been answered. I don't know if you want to ask Mr. McKenna a specific question, but
Well, you're capturing the stormwater, where is it going? Are we pumping it up to 34?
well, this is getting outside my area of expertise. So why don't we have Mr. McKenna answer?
No, we're not pumping it anywhere. It's going to go where it's always gone, downhill. You know?
To the two sewers that are already.
That's correct,
overflowing.
yeah, that's right.
Okay, so
These things don't
we're
produce,
capturing it,
they
but-
don't produce more water. I've heard some comments anecdotally, there's more water, there's more flooding. You can't produce more water. It rains the same tomorrow as it rained yesterday. It's the same water. What happens is that it comes out in an improved situation at a peak rate that's faster than the current situation. And what you do is you just capture it and hold it and you let it out slowly, as was mentioned earlier. So there's going to be a reduction from this particular thing. Now, you have comments from people that there's all sorts of water coming down Spring Hill Road. I don't doubt that. But this is just a 6-acre site, and this site will have less peak flow coming off it after it's developed than it does before. That may not solve all your problems out there because there's a larger drainage area, but for this particular site, there's not going to have any impact. There's not going to be an additional flooding or flow or anything along those lines.
Because right now, 34 floods, Spring Hill Road floods, and even across the way floods. And this is a wooded site that captures some of this water. So we're looking to, I guess, add to the problem.
Mr. Chairman, can
I think we just answered that.
Can I just?
We'll have the township engineer will speak.
So, you're right. What happens is when you have a wooded lot. I've never really needed a mic, but I guess you asked my wife. When you have a wooded lot, you're right. In general, the runoff from the site is less than when it's developed. So, when you develop the site, there will be more water that runs off of the site. But what happens is flooding is really, like Mr. McKenna said, flooding, or we have stormwater ponding issues. That's exacerbated by timing. So what happens is they're going to have a stormwater management basin that's going to be designed to capture the runoff that comes from their site in a developed condition and hold it on site, and then it's metered, meaning that it actually is let out slower. And then that's basically how that's how they achieve that goal that the DEP has. So to tell you that, oh, there's going to be less runoff in the proposed condition, that's the explanation. It's not that, because I guess logically it doesn't make sense. If someone's going to take a wooded lot and pave it, how can that be less runoff? That's how it's actually less runoff. It actually gets captured, held on site, and metered, so it's actually let out at a slower rate. Okay?
And as I said, we're back to the density issue. The reason for us looking at, I believe, the variance is to accommodate senior housing. And the study, again, I know it's up to the builder, the study of the senior housing, but why are we looking to change that? When these properties were put in place and the variances were given or the zoning was put in place, it was designed for one single-family homes. So now we're looking to change that to accommodate a builder, but we're not looking to accommodate everything structurally around it. The roads were designed for single-family homes and different densities, and everything around it was designed for single-family homes. And now we're looking to put in 58 multi-level homes. That's just why I'm asking, why are we looking to change variance to accommodate a builder?
We're not looking to, the applicant is looking to, all right? So, the town is always looking to honor its zoning ordinances. However, there is a provision, and as I stated before, under NJSA 40:55B-70D, which permits in 6 specific situations the authority of this board to grant relief. And in this particular situation, the applicant is seeking a use variance, because I agree, this is a single-family zone, and obviously requires use variance relief under D1. requires a floor area ratio under D4, and it requires a density variance. Those are the proofs that's incumbent upon the applicant to satisfy those proofs. This board will have to gauge whether or not this applicant has satisfied that burden of proof. There's a wealth of case law that goes back probably to the late 1940s when the New Jersey Constitution was enacted, which deals with all specific types of cases as to when a board can grant a use variance and can grant a density variance. That's what this board is authorized to do. They do it twice a month, and they've been doing it since 1947.
All right, and I mean, we are dealing with a state road here and a county road. So
We're dealing with the
34,
county. We're not dealing with
well,
the state highway.
34, is there going to be an
There's
opening
no-
on 34?
No.
It's the only in and out entrances on Old Mill.
Correct.
Okay, so they removed.
Emergency access.
Okay, that's fine. All right, that's all I have.
Thank you very much. The board takes note of your comments. Was anybody here in the middle, just one second, anybody here in the middle wanted to, okay, sir, I couldn't see you with the board. Come on up. You testified before?
No, I am.
Board
So
attorney,
please
swear you in.
Please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, self you got?
I do.
Please state your name, spelling your last name, and address for the record.
Edward Ferrara, Ferrara, 22 Van Elter Drive, Old Bridge, New Jersey. My concerns are, I moved out here 44 years ago, moving from Staten Island, which if you've ever been through Staten Island, you know what the sprawl did over there. And I've always loved this area because we've kept it rural, and a lot of the farms have been green acred, which I love. I love the whole area. I've lived here long enough. I have 2 acres of my own property. I would never leave that land because I love it so much. But my fear is that, you know, we're changing the complexity of the town by allowing this density to come into the town. And we've had it before, but how much more and will we need? How many more builders will come and apply for these variances? And where do we draw the line? At what point do we say no more? You know, I've heard people here concerns about, you know, where they live, single-family homes. The zoning was always for single family. I understand you have these people have a right to ask for these variances, but the people of this town have a right to say, you know, we really don't, I'm not interested in this type of housing in our town. It's unfortunate. I understand that, you know, progress is going to happen. I'm going to be 72 in a couple of days. I don't intend on leaving this area, and I've retired here, and like I said, I enjoy it. I would never live in a development like that, but that's just me. I don't know who made the study or what type of, you know, sales have been done, but after living on 2 acres of land, I could never live in a space like that. And I'm sure there's a lot of people would agree with me, because Old Bridge is that type of community where we have the land around us. There isn't neighbors upon neighbor like they have in Lawrence Harbor, which we heard earlier. We don't have those restrictions. And I
Lawrence
bought.
Harbor, sir, is part of Old Bridge.
I understand. That's why they're at this board. I understand they have a problem there because that was the way it was developed years ago. But I don't want to, you know, say too much here. But, you know, the one thing I keep in mind is, you know, you've always seen that Indian on TV, and I don't mean to be dramatic here, but, you know, I love that on the fire trucks in this town, they have the Indian. Do we really have to put a tear in the eye of that Indian? Thank you.
The board notes your comments, sir. Thank you. And behind the pole, I can't see who that is. Okay, come on up. Testify before?
I have not.
Ma'am, please raise your right hand. I'll swear you in. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, self you got?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, spelling your last name, and
Sure.
address for the record.
My name is Ricarda Pollock, Pollock. I live in 107 Washington Ave in Old Bridge. So I just had a quick question. I know there was a lot of talk about this anecdotal study about how there was a need for a senior complex here. So we're not able to see that, or there was one, or I just want to clear it. That's all. It's just a question. That's all. Thank you.
There's no study that's
Okay.
been done by the municipality.
Okay.
All right? There may have been some type of study done by the applicant.
Okay.
I don't know if he did or not.
Okay.
And the decision to build either age-restricted or market housing, which
Okay.
can be open to anybody, is strictly up to the applicant.
Okay.
I mean, I will tell you that there have been studies done by various demographic experts, by Rutgers University, which in the past have demonstrated that there's a need for this type of housing.
In Old Bridge?
In the state of New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, you've got an aging population. Most people do happen to stay in New Jersey when they retire. They
Sure.
don't leave the state, and they need housing.
Okay.
Unlike Mr. Ferrara, who might be happy living on his 2 acres, and God bless him, there are people who don't want to live in a large house anymore, or live on a large piece of land.
Okay.
Don't have the capabilities to maintain it, either financially or for health reasons. So certainly, I would imagine there is a demand for this type of housing.
Right.
But there's no study that's been done by the town, no study that's been authorized by this board. Mr. Goon, if you want to respond, it's up to you.
Not really. I think there's been a little confusion about a comment that I made in my opening statement. The decision to go with age-restricted housing was the applicant's based on his own market research and also prior meetings with certain township officials. Before we even came to this board, the applicant had several meetings with some of the officials in the town to talk about developing this property. And that is where he learned, perhaps for himself anecdotally, that age-restricted housing was something that the town would favor. But, again, the impacts of age-restricted housing also are typically much less than if you had market rate open to anybody, non-age restricted. So, in terms of a development that I think was something that both the township officials mentioned to the applicant that they would support here prior to us coming to the board, was an age-restricted product. So I didn't mean to confuse everybody by saying that he had come out and done some great study and that's what we're relying on. Quite frankly, it's not part of our case in support of the use variance. It's just that was his decision to make an age-restricted product, which is why we're here.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure that if there was some market research or something done, that we would be able to just see it. But you said no, or that that's not available?
No, again, there's not. It's
Oh, okay.
it's based on, it's just the applicant's own, it's his own market research. There's no official study or anything that I can share with you.
Okay.
And let me just add one thing. I do think providing age-restricted housing likely does satisfy one of the goals of planning. I see Mr. Chadwick sitting in the back, but he would probably concur that it satisfies one of the goals in providing a variety of housing for different demographic.
Right.
And I think that that's, by the way, that's what our planner testified to at one of the earlier meetings, and that's one of the reasons why we're meeting the purposes of zoning that we're addressing in support of our use variance request. One of several.
All right. I guess I'm also a parent whose kids all went to Cheesewig School and are still going there. And that concerns me that you now have this large development very close.